Because, all right. Okay, so hopefully this will all work out for us. Sorry for any technical glitches. We're going to work our best here to make sure that when it comes around to the application that you are interested in speaking to, that you will then turn on your camera and or turn off your mute, and that way we'll get through every application to bit by bit. So we'll probably have a bit of a crossover in between every application so far today. So for those of us who are just starting watching on YouTube, sorry for any delay. I'm Joel Watts, Deputy Clerk and Recording Secretary. I'm trying to help guide us through some of the technical glitches we just recently experienced, but I will now momentarily turn things over to our chair. And actually, I was just going to ask Leah and Holly, or Leah and Richard, if you can keep your cameras on for the majority of the meeting, that would be helpful just to be our management presence on Zoom. Perfect. Thank you. And now you'll see a little bit less of me, but I imagine too, you can also see us in the room, correct? Yes, okay, good. And you can still see a wide shot of the room right now? Perfect. All right, we may actually have conquered our technical glitches, so let's give this a whirl.
Thanks very much, Joel, and I'd like to call the Planning Advisory Committee meeting to order. It's electronic public participation and live streaming as well, too. So we will work through our challenges here today. Hopefully things will go well. This time I'd like to ask for an adoption of today's agenda. Councillor Vail, seconded by Mike Barkwell. All those in favor? That's carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. If anybody has one through the meeting, just please let the chair know. As I would like to, as required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making recommendations. This committee just makes recommendations, and these recommendations that are made here today will be going to the July 28th council meeting. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our members of staff. We got Mike Barkwell, Councillor Vail, Councillor Seymour Fagan, Jason Willick, and Mayor Andy Latham. I'm Pat O'Reilly, and Joel Watts is going to keep us on track through the day here. So, as required under the Planning Act, we have to have a public meeting. And the purpose of the public meeting is to gather information on the applications before us. Those wishing to make submissions will do it through Zoom today, and the committee will ask questions of the applicants and the interested parties as well. So if you could keep your deputations within 5 to 10 minutes, that would be great. And if we need anything further, we'll ask the indulgence of the committee. So we'll get right into the public meeting report. The first report today is Mark LaHaye, an application to amend the Village of Woodville zoning bylaw. Mark, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome members of committee. This is an application for a zoning bylaw amendment that was given, and the notice for this application was given to each assessed landowner within 500 meters of the rural area and within 120 meters of the urban area, and all applicable agencies and departments. A sign was posted on the property in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Just going to share my screen here for a moment, just to show you the location of the subject lands. The subject property is located within an urban settlement area on the east side of Agnes Street between King Street and the southern boundary of the former village of Woodville. The owner has applied to permit a residential accessory building, being a garage, on the rear portion of the subject property, which is currently not permitted, along with a minor increase in permitted height from 5 meters to 5.5 meters. The sewage system program has no concerns with the application, as the system is located in the rear of the dwelling unit, and the applicant has demonstrated there's a sufficient clearance distance to the distribution lines in the leaching bed from the proposed structure. This is the location of the existing dwelling. This is the entrance to the property and the driveway. This is the sewage system here, and the proposed accessory building being located in the rear of the property over here. Various documents and plans were submitted by the applicant in support of the proposed amendment. Staff have reviewed these documents, including the comments received from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, and are generally satisfied within the context of the applicable policies and plans. The Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority previously had advised that there are no natural heritage evaluation requirements and that the location of the proposed accessory building is outside of the floodplain. In addition, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority had advised they have no concern with the application and that the owner had received a permit from them back in October 2017, and the proposed works are within their regulated area, and the owner is only looking essentially to renew or extend that permit time frame. There have been no additional comments that have been received since the writing of this report. The application demonstrates consistency with the provincial policy statement and conformity with the growth plan and official plan. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will appropriately facilitate the construction of a residential accessory use on a portion of the property with a minor increase in permitted building height. This application has been reviewed in consideration of the comments from the circulated agencies and external agencies, relevant provincial policies, and the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, the official plan, and the Village of Woodville zoning bylaw. In consideration of these comments and the comments in the report, provided that there's no additional information that's raised at this public meeting that would alter this recommendation, staff respectfully recommends that the proposed rezoning application and a bylaw be referred to council for approval, and the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute any documents and agreements required by the approval of this application. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Mark. We have two other staff that are joining us today, Leah Barry and Richard Hawley. They'll also be with us as well today. Thank you. At this time, we will hear from the representative, Kent Randall. I believe Kent's with us today on behalf of EcoView.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. So thank you, Mark, for summarizing that. I think it's really fairly straightforward. Our clients, the Teals, for the record, my name is Kent Randall with EcoView. And we're the agents for the applicants. The Teals just want to build a garage in their backyard. That's essentially it. The problem is that there's a split zoning on the property. And so we are rezoning it so that in order to create one uniform zone on the entire property, it will allow them to build the accessory structure, and then also recognizing, as Mark said, the slight increase in height. So that's really all it is. It's fairly simple. And that's basically all I wanted to add to it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Kent. Members of committee, do you have any questions of the presenter or of Kent Randall at this time? Looks like everything's well done. Thank you very much. Members of the public that might be watching in today on Zoom, do you have any questions or concerns of the reports? Do you have anyone else have any concerns? Seeing none, we will move on to our next application. Right after? Okay, we're just going to do a little different. We'll do the actual recommendation today, and the recommendation is in your folder, moved by Councillor Vail. Seconded by Andy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next item is, I believe you're up next again, Mark, is an application to amend the United Township, Laxton, Digby, and Longford. Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Notice for this application for a zoning bylaw amendment was given to each assessed landowner within 500 meters and all applicable agencies and departments, and a sign was posted on the property in accordance with the Planning Act. I'm just going to share my screen again here. So the subject property is in a rural area and located adjacent to Shadow Lake on the east side of Highway 35, approximately 3 kilometers south of the hamlet of Norland and approximately a half a kilometer north of the Bexley-Laxton Township line in the geographic township of Laxton. The owner has applied for a rezoning to facilitate a condition of a consent application to sever the southern portion of the lands and consolidate it with the abutting commercial recreation lands that are adjacent to the shoreline. The owner has previously applied to sever approximately 0.83 hectares of commercial recreation lands containing a dwelling and accessory building to be consolidated with approximately 0.33 hectares of abutting commercial recreational lands containing a boathouse and 2 cottage cabins. No new lot is being created. Approximately 1.62 hectares of commercial recreation lands containing a dwelling and 11 cottage establishments or cottage cabins will be retained. The lot line adjustment is to separate the tourist commercial resort establishment known as Lakeside Park Cottages into separate entities that would functionally relate to Shadow Lake. The dwelling on the lot to be severed will constitute the proprietor's principal residence. And as a condition of the severance application, the property is required to be rezoned with a tourist commercial exception zone to recognize the lack of direct frontage onto a public street, that being from this part and the consolidated part, which currently relies on an existing legal access arrangement to Highway 35. And also to recognize deficient side yard setbacks from a new common property boundary line, which will exist here. Various documents and plans were submitted by the applicant in support of the proposed amendment. Staff have reviewed these documents and are generally satisfied in the context of applicable policies and plans. Since the writing of this report, comments have been received from the Ministry of Transportation supporting the application, provided the severance does not result in new Highway 35 frontage and that existing legal entrances are used to access both the severed, retained, and consolidated parcels. In this regard, staff confirms there will not be any new frontage and the existing legal access right-of-way will be utilized. The application demonstrates consistency with the provincial policy statement and conformity with the growth plan and the city's official plan. The proposed zoning amendment will appropriately facilitate the severance of the subject lands to be consolidated with the abutting commercial recreation lands and recognize the deficient lot frontage and access to a public street and minimum side yard setbacks. The application has been reviewed in consideration of the comments from the circulated departments and external agencies, relevant provincial policies, the city's official plan, and the United Townships of Laxton, Digby, and Longford zoning bylaw. In consideration of these comments and the comments in the report, provided that there's no additional information that's raised at this public meeting that would alter the recommendation, staff respectfully recommends that the proposed the proposed rezoning application and respective bylaw be referred to council for approval, and that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute any documents and agreements required by the approval of these applications. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. And we'll now call on Kent, if you're there again, to make your presentation on behalf of EcoView.
So actually, Mr. Chair, Ashlyn Kennedy from our office will be handling this one.
Okay, thank you.
Pass it off there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Kent mentioned, my name is Ashlyn Kennedy. I'm representing the Ryells, the Costers, and the Sullivans. As Mark mentioned, this is a rezoning application to fulfill a condition of the consent. And it's just to separate the tourist commercial use from the residents and ensure that they have proper access to their property. That's basically all I have to say, but I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. So I'll ask members of committee, do you have any questions of Mark or the presenter? Seeing none, we will also go out to the public now and see if anybody that's on Zoom today, would you have any questions or concerns or wish to make a deputation? Anyone else wish to make a deputation? Patty, is there a Patty Ryle that's on watching? Did you have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, she may be off. She's one of the owners. Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
I see her on, but I can't
We-
hear her if she's speaking.
She may be one of the owners. Maybe she's just watching in to see the process today. So, anyways, thanks for doing that, Patty. Anyways, no one else is wishing to make any comments. If not, there's a recommendation for this to go forward. What's the committee's wishes? Councillor Seymour Fagan, seconded by Jason. Further discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Our next application is by Ian Walker. It's an application to amend the City of Kawartha Lakes Plan and Township of Opp zoning bylaw. There's Ian. Sorry I didn't introduce you before. I didn't see you there, Ian. You're up.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This application is for an official plan amendment and rezoning for the property known as 2133 Little Britain Road, former township of Ops. The property is just west of the intersection of Highway 735 and Angeline Street, where it meets Little Britain Road. The current zoning, the current official plan designation is industrial and the zoning is agricultural support. There's an abattoir on the property today, and they are proposing to keep that abattoir and add some additional uses to the property. I'm just going to add in here screen here. So hopefully that shows up. Looks like, yep, we've got it there. So the key map here just showing where the property is located on Little Britain Road. Air photo of the property. This is the existing Len & Patty's butcher shop with the access coming in off of Little Britain Road. There is no access on Highway 7 or permitted from Highway 7. This application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act and actually in accordance with council's wishes to all landowners within 500 meters of the property. To date, we've received no comments from the public on this application. This application would have originally been scheduled for a public meeting in April. As such, the application had been circulated to commenting agencies, and we've received the majority of comments back. Since writing the report, have received comments back from our Part 8 sewage system supervisor, who noted that they have no objections or concerns to the application. Basically, what will happen is once the exact uses are sorted out for each of the buildings on the site, it will dictate what their sewage requirements are. And they're not concerned at this time that the sewage requirements couldn't be met for the proposed uses for this site. So at this time, I'm keeping the staff recommendation, as this is the public meeting, that we would refer it back to staff to address any concerns perhaps raised by the public. And I'll leave it at that. So if there are any questions, certainly I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ian. I believe Kevin Duguay here is on behalf of the applicant. Kevin, you're up.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see you.
Okay.
There you are. Thank you.
I'm visible now. Thank you. For the benefit of the committee members and staff, my name is Kevin Dugay. I'm a planning consultant. My office is in Peterborough. In fact, I'm sitting in my office. Like many of you are at your home or at your summit council chambers today. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Walker for the production of the staff report. Bob Mark New Holland dealership, which currently has a operation at the intersection of Angela and Highway 7 Little Britain Road, has outgrown their business location. This is a good news item. This is an economic and employment opportunity in a rural setting in your community. They acquired a land property within proximity of their lands to the west of their current holdings, and their intention is to introduce a new dealership, an expanded dealership with the attendant outdoor display areas on a new site, newly developed, having its vehicular access exclusively from Little Britain Road. The development concept also considers the maintenance or the retaining the existing abattoir use. There has been some thought and discussion that there will be enhancements to that building, its driveway and parking areas as part of the required site plan application that will follow the land use approvals as being contemplated by the city. The development concept also considers the introduction of 2 additional new freestanding buildings. Our development concept also was designed in a manner that each use would have its own septic facility. And Mr. Walker has indicated, as the recent comment from your Part A sewage municipal employee, that the occupancy of the buildings will dictate ultimately the wastewater requirements. DM Will's report and findings have identified that the site is suitable and can accommodate anticipated wastewater as well as private water supply. Insofar as the public, we hosted a public open house. It was held at the Lindsay Exhibition Building. It was attended by about 20 residents. And for the committee members, the bulk of their concerns was not the site. We actually had neighboring property owners that want the site developed. Their concern was the timing of the Highway 7 corridor improvements. And as Mr. Walker's indicated, we are not relying on Highway 7 for vehicular access. MTO has responded accordingly insofar as they do not have any difficulties with the applications as filed with the city. Now, I have noted as the part of the writing of this report that the majority of the key commenting agencies, Conservation Authority, Engineering, MTO, Building, now Sewage, and Planning, appear not to have any concerns with respect to the intended land use. We have no member of the public speaking today. We've had no member of the public submit written comments, and I referenced a previous public open house, which I can describe as being very positive. It is the desire of the property owner, in light of some of the delays that have, through no fault of anybody here, but COVID-19 protocol, it is their preference that this item actually proceed for implementing bylaws at the next available council meeting. As noted, your key commenting agencies, your municipal agents, departments and agencies have all commented favorably. There really is not an obstacle in terms of land use. And we would prefer that the implementing bylaws proceed in a timely manner. And related to this application, Mr. Chairman, committee members, the property owners have filed a zoning application dealing with their current site, which will be contemplating some additional industrial uses. That application is still in process and will eventually arrive at your decision-making table in the near future. I am available to respond to any questions, and I would again like to conclude by thanking Mr. Walker for his report writing and his ability during the last 4 or 5 months. We've been able to exchange emails, etc., on a regular basis. So I appreciate that service. I'm available for questions. I believe the property owner may also be chimed in. I'm not sure if they're speaking or just monitoring, but I'm certainly available to respond to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. At this time, I'll just ask members of the committee if they have any questions. Mayor Latham?
I do. I think for Ian, if there he is, thank you. Thanks for that update, Kevin, and Ian for the report. I guess based on Kevin's comments and from what I'm reading, Ian, I mean, is there any objection to, with the delays, and I assume there's a site plan will be required to put all this together, is there anything that can't be rectified at site plan that would oppose this committee moving the rezoning and the official plan amendment forward to be recommended to council? Is there anything jumping out to you right now based on the comments?
From my perspective, I would say no. Anything that's left remaining are issues. So MTO had noted there were 3 or 4 issues for stormwater management, but I did get MTO to also confirm that those are items that can be dealt with through the subsequent site plan application. So if it is this committee's wish to direct staff to prepare the OPA and zoning bylaws for the next available council meeting, certainly that is something that I would be in support of.
Thank you.
Other members of the committee have any questions of this report of the applicant? Anyone looking in on Zoom today? Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this application? Anyone wishing to speak to this application? Do we see anybody, Joel? The owner is maybe on Zoom. Does he wish to make any comments or at this time, or is he satisfied with Kevin's comments?
I'm satisfied with Kevin's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So seeing nobody else has any comments, what's the wishes of the committee? As printed?
No, I'll make the motion that the report be received and that the application regarding the, I don't know what the wording needs to be, that it be forwarded to council for approval and that the bylaws be brought forward to be signed by the mayor and the clerk. Yes.
Yeah. That's adequate, is it, Ian? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I believe that would be adequate. You're just directing staff to prepare the bylaws for council's consideration, and then council will approve them, and the mayor and clerk would be authorized to sign them.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Mayor Lance, seconded by Jason. Further discussion at committee level? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So I think that concludes our part of our public meeting. I don't believe there's any deputations or correspondence. City of Kawartha Lakes reports. Is you up, Leah, today? Are you in place of Anna today, Leah, are you? Do we have Anna as well? Okay. Oh, sorry, Anna. That's good. Thanks for joining us. It's your report. You're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, committee members and chair. Over the last 2 years, we have seen a number of provincial changes.
We'll get you to speak as loud as you can, okay, Anna?
For sure, okay.
Okay, thank you.
I was just saying that over the last 2 years, we have seen a number of provincial changes. In May 2019, we have seen the Growth Plan 2017 replaced by Growth Plan 2019, with further amendments currently subject to consultation. And those amendments are to update and extend forecasts of people and jobs, as well as to make revisions to the land needs assessment. Another major change was in the summer of 2019 when Bill 108 More Homes, More Choice Act made changes to 13 pieces of legislation, including the Planning Act. And in May of this year, the updated Provincial Policy Statement 2020 came into effect, which is the subject of my report. It is important to know that all of these changes tie back to the More Homes, More Choice, Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan that focuses on cutting red tape to get development going faster and easier and making housing more affordable, among other objectives. And therefore, we see PPS 2020, new and amended policies, be reflective of the changes that were made through Bill 108 and the growth plan. I won't go into the details of the changes to the PPS 2020, but broadly speaking, the changes strive to make more land available for forecasted people and jobs, while also coordinating sewer and water services with that forecasted growth. The changes also encourage expanded housing options to include new housing types and arrangements for more choice, to give municipalities the tools to create shovel-ready employment sites. The changes require municipalities to consider the impacts of climate change to protect human health and engage with Indigenous communities. And last but not least, facilitate limited residential development on rural lands while also protecting prime agricultural areas. Legislation provides that council decisions shall be consistent with PPS 2020. And similarly, the legislation requires that the city's official plan be reviewed for consistency with the new policies through a municipal comprehensive review. You will note that many of the policies and studies are triggered through a municipal comprehensive review in the PPS 2020, and that is the same in the growth plan. The province requires municipalities to come into conformity with the new provincial plans by July 2022. In the report, I recommend next steps that the city can complete ahead of the municipal comprehensive review that would support conformity with the PPS, which may include amending policies to allow additional residential units, which may permit secondary and tertiary units on eligible properties. This may also include amending the official plan to allow on-farm diversified uses to support the work of our agriculture development officer and to support our agriculture sector. It may also include building on the work completed by Kawartha's naturally connected mapping and implement the recommendations in the lake management plans to support the work completed by Kawartha Conservation. It may include preparing a list and marketing our shovel-ready employment sites to support the work of Economic Development Division. And last but not least, develop archaeology master plan, including mapping of archaeologically significant sites to support the work of the city's heritage planner. And there are a few more ideas included in the report. In summary, the changes to the PPS 2020 are anticipated to have positive impacts on the city and its growth. The city, however, has a lot of work ahead and a relatively short time frame to complete the municipal comprehensive review, and should proactively complete any work associated with the provincial plan conformity ahead of the official plan review where possible. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for that, Anna. It's a very long report, and thanks for the summation. It looks like a very encouraging report for development going forward. At this time, did Leah or Richard want to add anything further? I know you had a very good report, Anna, but just this time I didn't know if, while you're there, if you wanted to add anything before questions. I guess that's a no, so that's okay. We'll be here for you'll be there for questions. So, members of the committee, do you have any questions? Mayor Latham.
I do. Thanks, Anna, for that report. I have a couple quick questions. I noticed in the one the impact to the city on the growth management. Interesting, where it talks about growth forecast to horizon to 2051 with a forecast of 117,000 and 39,000 on employment, but has a low growth scenario of 114 and a high growth scenario of 119. And then you say a significant distinction is that the forecast represents minimum targets. When we say there's a low growth scenario and a high growth scenario, do we get to set a target within that scenario as a municipality, or is the province sort of taking the middle ground? Because we've talked about that for a while, some of the unrealistic expectations that are sometimes put on the municipality from a growth perspective that we have to build our plans around. And so that's an interesting thing I've never seen before. I wonder if you can just clarify that.
Yeah, let me just clarify firstly that the changes that you're referring to are actually proposed through the growth plan. So the change to the planning horizon in the PPS is from 20 years to 25 years. Now, the new amendment to the growth plan proposes to change that for municipalities within the growth plan area from 2041 to 2051. So that is the first thing I want to mention. Secondly, we're currently still reviewing the proposed changes to the growth plan, and I would be happy to share our comments to the province. At this time, these changes are not in effect. These are just proposed by the province.
That makes sense. Please share our comments with the province. I appreciate that. Thank you. I guess the other question I have, I mean, I'm being told that from what I hear and from what I read, a lot of this is good news for our municipality, you know, moving forward. And I'm just wondering if you could, maybe it's not a fair question, but you have Leah and Richard there, so you have lots of backup. So I'm wondering if you could just give us an example of, you know, give us a scenario that relates to our municipality that's changing with this new provincial policy. That how is it good news for our municipality when we talk about, you know, allowing boundaries to change? Or I'm just wondering if you have any specific examples that we could relate to, that when we say it's good news, how is it good news? How does it relate to, you know, something that's going on in our municipality? I don't know if that's a fair question, but I'm going to throw it out to you anyway. So.
Sure. There's definitely more flexibility proposed through the Provincial Policy Statement 2020. So first of all, the changes are allowing for a longer time horizon. So what that effectively means is that there are more people and more jobs that we need to accommodate. That means we need more land. That means we're opening up potentially at this point, settlement area boundaries to encourage that development in the city to the forecasted timeframes. So that would be one point. Another point is that the PPS focuses a lot on housing and allowing for different housing options to come to municipalities. And so through that, we are able to accommodate a range of housing options that maybe before we were a little bit more hesitant to allow in the city, that can now locate here and also across province.
Thanks for that, Anna. So when we've talked before about the city having, and excuse my numbers here, but the city having enough service land within our boundaries to accommodate the growth through to 2041. Do you, based on these new forecasts, are we still forecasting that we have enough service land within our boundaries to accommodate the growth now to 2051, or will those boundaries need to be increased as a result of, and I know we're probably not there yet, but as a result of these new numbers and these new forecasts, does that sort of increase our boundaries, or are we still within our over surplus of service land that we have within our urban boundaries?
That is a very good question, and I wish I could answer that, but we would review that through our growth management strategy to be able to answer that question.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Members of committee, any further questions of those that are available today? Just to further build on Mayor Letham's question, so the justification process for extending settlement boundaries, it'll be laid out fairly clear. I realize that the numbers are there and whatever, and we're going to have to justify that out to 2051, but there's going to be a clear process that we will have to follow, obviously.
Yes. So the growth management strategy that was completed in 2010 and 2011, that would be relatively similar to what we need to go through now, and that will include also the official plan review, which is a public process.
Any further questions from members of the committee? Looks like you got lots of work ahead, Anna, in a short period of time coming forward. So thanks very much for that comprehensive report. And seeing no further questions from members of the committee, there's a motion to receive. Mike, could you move that? Receive for information. And a second by Councillor Vail. Further discussions, members of the committee? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I believe that concludes our meeting for today. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Vail, Jason, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you for coming in, and thanks, Joel, for all your work getting out to YouTube and everything else, getting straightened out at the last minute. Yeah. Yeah. Is it safe out there in that alley, Leah, where you are standing in front of that brick wall? Or thanks for joining us today.